Polygamy Part 29. It was Christmas Day. From the very first cry of the morning birds, Egbejo village was already awake. From house to house, laughter echoed. Mortars pounded yam endlessly, women shouted instructions to children, men moved in and out carrying stools, mats, and calabashes. It was the kind of morning that felt different in the bones, the morning that carried promise, excitement, and unseen destiny. At the king's palace, the air was thick with smoke and aroma. Cooks and chefs had arrived since the night before, not only from Egbejo but from neighboring villages as well. 10 full-grown cows had been slaughtered at dawn. Goats lay in rows, chickens in baskets, firewood stacked like walls. Large iron pots bubbled with soups, pepper stew, and rice. Smoke rose into the sky as if the palace itself was breathing. Inside the palace compound, everything glittered. Palm fronds, colored fabrics, beads, and lanterns decorated the walls. Even strange new decorations brought in by traders, tall green trees dressed with shiny objects, stood proudly, glowing under the sun. Christmas had truly arrived. Back at Chief Odom's compound, everyone was getting ready. Junior had already left early, laughing and running with his friends, excitement written all over his face. Chief Odom stood outside adjusting his wrapper, while Felicia checked her head tie one last time. "Nita. Zita." Felicia called. "You girls should come out now. We don't want to arrive late." Zita appeared almost immediately, dressed simply but neatly, her calm beauty glowing quietly. Nita followed moments later, looking radiant, her face unusually soft, her movements graceful, as though she had rehearsed every step. Unknown to everyone else, just before she stepped out, Alice had leaned close to her ear inside the hut. "Don't forget what I told you," Alice whispered. "Do exactly as I instructed. Leave the rest for me." Nita nodded once, slowly. No fear. No hesitation. They joined the crowd moving towards the palace, singing, laughing, children skipping ahead, elders walking with pride. The road to the palace had never looked so alive. When they finally arrived, Nita and Zita froze. The palace was more than they had ever imagined. It rose like a giant carved from wealth and power, wide courtyards, tall pillars, shining floors, guards standing in perfect lines. Everything looked expensive, polished, untouchable. Music filled the air as drummers beat rhythms that made hearts race. As the crowd cheered, the king appeared, tall and dignified, dressed in royal regalia. Beside him stood a young man. Nita's breath caught. Zita leaned closer, her eyes widening. "That man, doesn't he look like the one we saw at the stream?" Nita swallowed hard. "It's him." They stared again. "How can he be standing beside the king?" Zita whispered. Then realization crashed into them like thunder. "He is the prince," Nita said under her breath. Zita nodded slowly. "That explains everything." Panic crept into Nita's chest. Her heart began to pound. "I didn't treat him right," she thought. "I ignored him. I was cold. What if he remembers? What if he uses it against me?" Her hands trembled slightly. "Why didn't I speak to him? Oh gods, please don't let me stumble today." From above, where the king and the prince stood, the prince's eyes swept across the crowd. Suddenly, he paused. He saw them. Nita and Zita. A small smile crossed his face, calm, knowing. He nodded slightly, acknowledging them. Neither sister moved. The king raised his staff, and silence slowly fell. "My dear people of Egbejo," he began, his voice strong and steady. "You are all welcome. Eat, drink, and celebrate this Christmas in joy. There is more than enough for everyone." Cheers erupted. As the celebration continues, the king added, "Families with eligible daughters who wish to participate in the upcoming selection should come forward to register." Immediately, Mamas spread through the crowd. Mothers adjusted their wrappers. Fathers stood taller. Chief Odom turned to Felicia. Go and register the girls. Felicia nodded and joined the long line of women stepping forward, each proudly announcing her daughter's name. When it was almost Felicia's turn, she turned to call Nita. Nita, she said. No response. She turned again, scanning the crowd. Nita, she asked Zita, her voice tightening. Where is your sister? Zita looked around, confused. Nita was nowhere to be found. To be continued. Polygamy Part 30. The Christmas celebration rolled on into the afternoon. Villagers sat in clusters under trees and open shades, eating and drinking without restraint. Children ran around with oily fingers, laughter filling the palace grounds. Elders sat proudly, recounting old stories. Music played without pause. It was a day of abundance, joy, and color. But in the middle of all that celebration, one heart was in deep panic. Felicia. When it was finally her turn to register her children, Junior and Zita, she turned instinctively to call Nita forward. Nita, she called softly at first. No answer. She turned again, scanning the crowd more carefully. Nita, she called louder. Nothing. Felicia's chest tightened. She turned sharply to Zita. Where is your sister? Zita's smile faded. She was just here with me a few minutes ago. She didn't say she was going anywhere. Felicia's eyes darted from face to face. The crowd felt suddenly too large, too noisy. I don't understand, Zita added, worry creeping into her voice. She wouldn't just disappear. Felicia abandoned the registration line immediately and began pushing gently through the crowd, calling Nita's name again and again. Zita followed closely behind her. They searched everywhere, near the food area, among the dancers, beside the musicians, near the palace gate. Nothing. Fear crept into Felicia's heart like a cold hand. She turned and hurried towards Chief Odom, who sat among other elders. My husband, she said breathlessly, lowering her voice. There is a problem. We can't find Nita. She is nowhere among the crowd. Chief Odom straightened at once. What do you mean nowhere? I mean she has vanished, Felicia replied. She was here moments ago. Chief Odom stood up, worry written clearly on his face. He moved quickly towards the guard standing near the palace entrance. My daughter is missing, he told one of them. Please, can you help make an announcement? Someone must have seen her. Before the guard could respond, Junior approached, curiosity and concern mixed on his face. Daddy, he asked, why do you look so tense? Chief Odom sighed. Your sister Nita is missing. We can't find her anywhere. Junior frowned, then paused as if remembering something. I don't think Nita is missing. Felicia and Chief Odom turned to him sharply. I saw her earlier, Junior continued. She was walking towards the main palace door. I asked her where she was going, and she said she needed to use the restroom. Felicia's heart skipped. Are you sure? Yes, Junior nodded. Maybe she's not feeling well. Maybe she's having a running stomach, that's why she hasn't come back. Chief Odom exchanged a glance with Felicia. Without another word, he gestured for Junior to follow him. Let's go and check inside, he said. They began walking towards the main palace building, unaware that they were already far too late. Unknown to them, Nita was no longer anywhere near the crowd. She had followed the prince. Quietly. Carefully. She traced his steps into the inner chambers of the palace, a place few villagers ever entered. The air there was calm, heavy with incense and royalty. Guards stood at a distance, assuming she had every right to be there. Nita stopped a few steps behind the prince, watching him. When he sensed her presence, he turned. Nita, or Zita?" he asked with a smile. "Which one is your name?" He studied her face. "I remember you refused to talk to me the last time we met." Nita smiled faintly. "Nita," she replied confidently. "I am Nita, daughter of Chief Odom." Before she could say more, the prince nodded. "Odom Ebiko." "Yes, I know." Nita's eyes widened slightly. "My prince, how do you know so much about me, when I barely knew who you were?" He smiled again. "You didn't want to know. That's why I didn't tell you." Nita laughed softly, stepping closer. "You mean the day at the stream? I was going through stress. It was a bad mood. I'm sorry about that." The prince watched her approach, saying nothing. As she came closer, Nita slipped one hand into the tiny pocket of her clothing. Her fingers touched a fine white powder. She withdrew her hand calmly. As she reached the prince, she brushed his garment lightly, just once. The white powder disappeared into the fabric. Instantly, the prince's eyes shifted. Something changed. His gaze softened unnaturally, fixing on Nita with sudden intensity, as though seeing her for the very first time, and forgetting everything else. Nita noticed it. And she smiled. "To be continued."